Hello, everyone. Welcome to What's New MicroStrategy REST API Playground session. Today we have Edward and Antoine and myself in the panelist. Okay, so my name is Harry Du. I'm a senior architect in developer relations team. And I have been with MicroStrategy for 17 years. Currently, I'm leading the developer relations team. Here we also have Edward in my team. Edward, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. So I'm Edward, and I've been part of the developer relations team for about a year and 4 months now, since full time. And I used to be an intern at MicroStrategy actually back in 2018.
Thank you, Edward. And Anton, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Antoine Isili. I'm looking after our embedded and roadmap, our embedded customers, our embedded revenue. And I've been with MicroStrategy for about 5 years. Lucky to be part of the Northeast New York team. I see a lot of familiar names in the attendees list. I'm looking forward to hear questions you might have about the real cool playground that Harry and his team built.
Thank you, Anton. So we started the developer relations team early last year, and we developed in January this year. We released the embedding SDK playground, and in this meeting we're going to show you everything about MicroStrategy REST API playground. So as the developer relations team, our mission is to help our developer community. So we are the bridge between product team and the developer community. Our mission is to make our developers' life easier and also bring the feedback from the field to our product team to improve our product and the SDK. So first, okay, we're going to release, we are released REST API Playground, and congratulations to the team, and we're going to show you everything about it. In today's agenda, we're going to show you what is MicroStrategy's REST API Playground and how to get you started and how to use the REST API Playground. And we're going to show you lots of demos, and we're going to also talk about some advanced usage of the playground and the Postman SDK. So when we start this project, our goal is to find something, make something easy to use. For example, if you log in, we want to be able to remember your session instead of you copy paste the auth token, right? When you create an object, we want to be able to remember the object ID you created, and in the subsequent request, you can use that object ID to update, to fetch to get the information about the object. We also want to be able to automatically generate code, right? So most of the case, you are not going to use the curl, make the call directly, right? So you're going to you're going to call the REST API from some program language code, right? We want to be able to generate code instead of you Google and figure out how to write the code. We want to make it support multiple environment. In your scenario, you may have a multiple stage, right? You may have a same object ID, but in a different stage. So the only thing you want to change is probably some environment variable, some like base URL, some project ID, authentication. We want to extract that logic from the collection and to make it easier for you to switch environment. So we look into some of the product out there, and this one is on the screen is the Microsoft Graph Explorer. So basically, it's a playground, right, for REST APIs. On the left, you can see there are some requests, and when you select one request, you can specify the body, you can change the parameter, you can make a request. We can make a run request. When you run a request at the bottom, it will show you a response. This example, using like a ME API, right? So it shows the response. You can see Microsoft also provide you to generate the code snippet. You can see here. You can also click this link, select language, and show you it will show you some code snippet. We want to do something similar to this. This is what we did. So this is our interface. We host this on Postman. So we were able to achieve this using the Postman platform without even writing a single line of UI code. We wrote a lot of scripts, but we didn't even need to write a single line of UI code. So you can see the UI, there's some similarity here, right? On the left, you can see here is the list of requests. When you select request, you can specify some parameters. You can see everything in the request: header, parameter, path, the method, and you can send, right? You can run the request, and when you run the request, you can see the response, and you can see everything in the response. You can also see the console. You have a console log. You can see everything in the request. So there's also code generation, code generator. So on the left, on the right sidebar, you can see there's this icon. This is for the code generator. You can also, there's a lot more in the Postman platform. There's a SDK. We're going to show you some examples. So we were able to achieve almost 100% of functionality the Microsoft provide for their REST API using the third-party platform. So what is MicroStrategy's REST API playground really? So we call it playground. It actually is a collection of workspace and the collection of requests, like collections hosted on Postman's cloud environment. So we host on a Postman's cloud. You need to, in order to use it, you need to like make a clone, either make a fork or make a copy, download a copy, and we'll show you that. And why do we choose to use Postman? First, Postman is very popular in developer community. It is the most popular public API hub. It has more than 20 million registered users. And secondly, it's open. So it supports many standards. So it supports open API standard, and which is what we use to define our REST APIs. You can get the open API spec from our library server. There's a URL you can get. It is integrated with GitHub and so many CI/CD tools. So if you build a project on top of Postman, you can leverage those functionalities. And also it has a lot of open source SDKs. So we'll show you some examples. For example, you can have there's a SDK to pass your collections. There's a SDK for you to run the collections, and there's a SDK for you to automatically generate the code from the collection. We compare with Swagger. So compare with Swagger, it's much easier to use. Later, Edward will show you how to do some certain actions on Swagger, and also show you comparison with the Postman. With the support of variables and JavaScript code, it is very flexible and powerful. And Postman can, you can use Postman to do the automation. You can use Postman to build your own project. So it's very powerful. To get you started, so this is how to get started. So we host our workspace publicly on Postman. And in order to use it, you need to get a Postman account, right? You need to have a Postman account. You need to find our workspace and find our collection. You need to either fork or import it into your workspace. And then you can create as many forks as you want. And you also need to create an environment variable. So we provide some default, the demo environment variable list, and also we provide a template for your cloud environment. You can create a copy or fork of the environment variable, and you can change the things in the environment variable. Then you can run it. So when you run a request, you can run a collection. So when you run it, and you are using the Postman client as a client, right? And you make a request to your MicroStrategy library REST API server. So that's how it works. And next, I'm going to show you some demo. I'm going to start from scratch. And find the REST API playground and create a workspace, create a fork, and try to run some requests. Okay, so let's get started. So to find the MicroStrategy's SDK REST API playground, you can go to the postman.com. You can go to postman.com. You can search MicroStrategy, right? When you search MicroStrategy, find the MicroStrategy SDK. Right? You can search. That's one way. You can search. You can find the MicroStrategy SDK. you find our profile. In our profile, you have we have three collections, 2 workspaces. So there are 1 workspace. This one is pretty small. The Cloud Console REST API is pretty small. And it is for if you use the MicroStrategy cloud environment, there's some REST API you can use to do automation. So this is very small. There are only like 30 some REST APIs. The other one is pretty big. This collection, a REST API, This collection is exactly map of our REST API documentation on the Swagger, right? If you're familiar with MicroStrategy API doc on Swagger, you can see it's exactly map of this. And we added some script, make it easier to use. So this is this collection. This is pretty big, has more than 400 APIs. The other collection, we call it the REST API workflows. Right? If you open these collections, this is organized by the use case, right? You can see this is organized by use case. So each folder is it's a use case. It's supposed to be used as the interactive tutorial. So every request every folder you can click run. You can run the request, so you can see the sequence of requests and the precondition, postcondition. So this can be used as the interactive tutorial. This is one way to find. And the other way, you can also find our GitHub channel. So if you go to our GitHub page, you can find github.microstrategy, right? So let's see, go to GitHub/MicroStrategy, you'll find MicroStrategy. You can also search, find a MicroStrategy, right? Inside the MicroStrategy, you can see REST API Playground. So you can find REST API Playground. From here, you got a link. You have a link to link to the Postman project. Also, you can do search. You can do Google search. If you search MicroStrategy REST API Playground, okay, you'll find a community post, and from here you got a link. So there's many ways to find our project. If you remember, right, REST API Playground, MicroStrategy REST API Playground, you'll be able to find it. Okay, so let's fork this project. So I found this project, right? So let's go to MicroStrategy's. So before you fork, you cannot run. If you try to run this, you'll see Postman will not allow you to run. Right? You see, if I try to run the project, you'll see some error message. Right? You cannot run this in our public workspace. You need to fork. So let's fork. So in order to fork, let me first create a workspace. You need to have a workspace. Let me create a brand new workspace. Let's say demo. Okay, demo. Okay, I'll call it demo. I'll create no, not found here. So I'm going to create a workspace here. Okay. Oh, you need to have a Postman account. You need to, otherwise you cannot do these actions. You need to have a Postman account. I'm going to call it demo. Okay, make it personal. Make sure I'm using the right account. Okay. So now I have a new workspace called demo. So nothing here, right? You see, there's no collection here. There's no environment here. So I'm going to go to the REST API workspace. This is a MicroStrategy workspace. You can find it from the search. So here I'm going to create a fork. So there's multiple ways for you to use this. You can do export. If you do export, it will download the Postman JSON file. So you can import that. You can also do fork. So our recommendation is to use the fork. If you do a export, there's no connection between your workspace and our base workspace. And everything we change, you will not be able to get notified, and you are not able to automatically update. So if you do fork, you'll get notified. You can automatically update your. Once we make some change, you can decide to put that change into your collection. So let's create a fork. Let me put as a label, okay, and I'm going to put it into my workspace just created, right? So this will take about, this will take about 20 seconds. So okay. So I'll do the same thing for the workflow collection. So let's do this the same thing for the workflow collection. I'm going to add a label, put it here. The label doesn't matter. It's an identifier, and when you do a PR, this will be used as an identifier. Okay, so this will take about 20 seconds. I will also create a fork of the environment. So we have a two environment here. We added two environment collections. One is the demo. So this is to access the demo environment. I'm going to create a fork. This will be very quick. Here. Do very quick, and it will automatically switch to my workspace. I want to go back to my the public workspace and create a fork of another one. So this is a template for cloud environment, and so I'll create a fork and also modify the URL and password to access my environment. Okay, all right, let's create this one. All right, so now let's go to the. Yeah, so this is it automatically switch to the workspace I just created. So now look at this workspace. I'll have two collections. One is REST API and have a label here, and this is the fork from the MicroStrategy's public hosted collection. We have a two environment, right? So next, I'm going to modify this. So if you look at this, we didn't put a password, so I'm going to add a password here. Let me, I think I have this copied, so I'm going to post. This is my password. I'm going to put my password here so I can make this, I can make a request to this environment. So let me save this. Okay, so now let me give you a quick overview of the Postman's interface. So on the left, so in order to use those collections, you need to open your workspace. So when you select workspace, right, you'll see on the left, it's a left sidebar. You can choose collection, you can choose environment. We didn't use the API, nothing here, and we didn't use this. You can, so as a user, once you create a fork, you can do whatever you want. So once you create a fork or copy to your workspace, you can do whatever you want. You can use those functionalities. You can see if you make a request, you'll see the history here. And in this part is a collection, right? The tree view of the collections is organized by the folder, and you can have many levels of the folder. In this part, if I close this, if I select a request, let me select authentication. So let me run this. Okay, I'm open the request, right? When I open the request, you can see this is all the information about this request. There's a method, right? Base URL, right now it's red because I didn't select the environment. So I need to select environment. Let me make a request to a demo environment. So I'm going to select demo environment. Just give you an overview of what's in this. So if you collect this, like we have a base URL, we have a authentication mode, login mode. We put some like a default object ID so that you can run request without providing like ID. You can run some request. Okay, so let's close this. Let's run this. So I'm selected the demo environment. I'm going to make a request, right? When you make a request, the response will show you at the bottom. You can actually change the layout. You can see here. You can add a bottom sidebar. You can also change the layout if you don't want to bottom up. You can also do this left and right layout. So in the request, you can see everything about request headers, the response headers, response cookies. If you have a test script, like there's two places you can add code. So one is the pre-request script, and the other one is the test script. So pre-request script will be run before you run the script, run the request. And the test script, you can write JavaScript code here, and this will be executed after you get a response. So you can see every information here. You can also see the console log. You can also see the console log. Whatever request you make, you can see every information about this request. On the right side, there are a couple of functionality you might be interested. One is this code, right? you can generate code based on for the language you want to use. If you want to use JavaScript, let's see, JavaScript fetch, right? You can see the code generate. This is just the code snippet, it's a code example. So you can copy, you can make some changes, and yeah, it's convenient for you to figure out how to write the code. Right? There's also some other languages. The Postman support more than probably more than 10 programming language and with many different libraries. And the other one you can use is the documentation. So yeah, if you close this, it will shrink the sidebar. So if you select the collection, right, you can see the documentation. So you can open this to see the documentation, and you can view the complete documentation. If you click the bottom link, you'll view the complete documentation. So you can use this as the documentation inside, right? You can view the documentation. There are two clients you can use. There's a web client. So this one is web client. There are also Postman, like a desktop client. So let me open the Postman desktop client. The same functionality, almost the same functionality. Our recommendation is to use, let me open this. Hold on. Let me open this, the demo, right? This is the workspace I just created. So you can run the same thing. You can do the same thing in the desktop client. I do authentication, I go to authentication. Okay, I send, it will, oh, I didn't select environment. So let me select demo environment, I'll send. So it will create an auth token for me. So in the test script, you can see we automatically save this auth token. So I can make another request without copy paste. So let me make this request. Get user information, right? I want to make this request. You see, this is the guest user, and I can do folder browsing. Let me see. I can get the content of the folder. Let me see. Like we have some default public folder ID there, and you can run this. Like you can see what's in this folder. So you can basically use this to figure out how the API works. So there are two clients. Our recommendation is to use the desktop Postman's native desktop client. It's basically an Electron app, and it has most same functionality. I think this is different. So there's two major differences. This feature does not exist in the web clients. You can do search. You can do search, and it can. There's multiple places to do search. And here you can search. This will search based on the description. Right? You can do search. If I do search authentication, you can see all the request has this word. Right? You can also do more sophisticated search, regular expression search, and you can select which collection you want to use. And so you can do this search as well. There's another difference between the Postman native client and the web client is if you have an environment, you didn't turn on the same-side cookie, set same-side cookie to none, and you need to use if you want to use the web client, you also need to install the agent. So, but however, if you use a desktop client, you don't need to do. Even if the client, your library server did not enable, did not change the same-side cookie to none, you can still use it. So the desktop native client will do that for you. So our recommendation is to use the native client. Okay, next. Let me go back to my slides. Next, we're going to show you. Yeah, so I already show you how to run requests in the REST API collection. Let me show you how to run requests in the workflow collection. So we have a workflow collection here, right? So let me change the environment to be my cloud environment. So this is my cloud environment. So if I want to run a collection in one of the folder, I can just select this folder, right? Folder browsing. So it has a sequence login. It will search folder. It will show me the content of folder, then do logout. So if I click run button here, there's a run button. So you use this button, you can run the collection. So here it show me, okay, the list of requests in this collection. I can select run. So you can decide whether you want to put a delay between each collection. You can also run many times. If you want to provide some parameter, you can also do this. This will be, this is the variables from the data. So let's run this. I'm going to clear. Let me clear this console log. I'm going to run this. So you see for request, and they all successful. You can see everything from a console. I can see everything about this. All right. So next, I'm going to pass to Edward to show you how to do scripting in Postman, and also how to use the our workflow collections, some advanced features. All right, Edward.
My screen. All right. So to begin, let's talk about scripting Postman. There's 3 locations you can put scripts in Postman: in a collection, in a folder, and in a request. And there's basically 2 execution orders. One is before a request is made, which is a pre-request script, and another is after the response is received, which is our test scripts. In our collection, basically in our playground, basically we use it to prepare some environment and local variables for the pre-request scripts. And for our test scripts, we basically use it to validate responses and sometimes store variables from the responses, such as what is the instance ID created from this create instance call, etc. And all these scripts are written in JavaScript and Postman, and there's a you can use pm.variables to refer to any local variables, or pm.environment for environment variables. And PM basically stands for Postman, and you can use this to access a whole bunch of Postman specific APIs. And you can see the chart down here is basically the execution order. So collections pre-request scripts would basically always run before folder scripts, and then the folder script would run, and then the request scripts would run. And same for the test script execution order. The collection test script would run first, then the folder, and then the request. The 2 variables. So there's a whole bunch of different types of variables in Postman. You can reference them by double brackets and then your variable name. And we use this in the URL parameters, headers, and in the payload. And there's also side dynamic variables. You can use the double bracket and then the $GUID, the timestamps, some random first name, and a whole bunch of other ones. You can see the link here above in order to see the full list of different type of variables and more about this in detail. You can also access the variables in the script by basically referencing what is the scope. So is it a global variable? Is it a collection variable? Is it an environment variable, local variable, etc. And then dot your variable dot get, and then your variable string. And that's how you access it in the scripts. So in terms of scopes, basically whenever you declare a variable using double bracket notation, it would reference the narrowest. So it would first try to see if there's local variable with that name. If not, it'll try to see it if there's data variable, then environment, and then collection, and then global. And in terms of the environments in Postman, they're basically a name value pair. So you assign a name, and that's the key, and it'll have a value of what is that value in the environment. And there's initial and current values in the environment, and I'll show you in the demo that'll be on the next slide.
Hey, Edward, you have a raised hand from Ignacio. Would you like to take the question live?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's see, what is the question? How do you add a new environment to your workspace report? That's an excellent question. I'll show you in the demo, actually.
You actually have the question live, I think.
Yes.
Ignacio, you have the ability to unmute yourself.
So we can, yeah, so you can send your question in the QA, and we will take the question at the end. We have a lot of content to cover.
Yeah,
make sure we
right.
cover. Yeah.
I'll show this during the demo. It'll be over in the demo. So first thing I want to show you guys is what do we currently have before all this playground, and basically what's the difference between Swagger versus Postman. So Swagger is the documentation we have currently. So you can access this just by going to API docs index HTML, this URL for your environment. So you just replace this demo.microstrategy.com with your cloud environment, essentially. So Well, let's say I want to run some REST API calls in the Swagger API. Right now, we would have to do the following. So let's say I want to try this out for the first time. Well, you would have to navigate under one of the tabs to what you want to do, log in. So this is demo environment. So there's actually only one login mode. You have to set this to 8. It was 1 by default, but I changed it. And then you have to copy the response, the auth token, to be used in some other calls. So let's say I want to create a metric, right? Well, I'll have to create a change set too. So I paste this auth token in here. And how do I get the project ID? Well, there's a few different ways to get the project ID. One is you can actually search and find like all the projects inside your environment. And that's through a REST API call, but there's actually an easier way, which I use, which is basically when you go to your environment library, you can click on any dossier, any one of your dossier, and it'll show you the project ID of where that dossier is. So I'll just use this ID right here. It'll be the first one after app, basically. So I'll use this here, and that is the project ID. Execute. And now invalid access token. So maybe I need to log in again. Let me see. Execute on okay. Invalid access token. Try this again. Execute. So you see now you have a whole bunch of data in response. So now you get the change set ID. So to create a metric, you can, now that you have a change set, you can create a metric. So you navigate to metrics, and now you have to re-input every single one of the basically values from above, and doesn't store it with the Swagger API. And then you also have to generate this response body. So I won't be showing you this step. I'll be showing you how to do it with our Postman application actually. So following the same logic, after you create a fork, so you have to navigate to, so I'm using the desktop application, and you can search MicroStrategy on, and you'll find the SDK. And this is our workspace, basically, our homepage. And you can go to workspaces, click on the REST API one, and now you're here. And I'll be creating a fork of a REST API. We have two collections here. One is the REST API one, and one is the workflow one. So I'll create a fork of the workflow of the regular REST API one and the workflow one into my workspace that I want to work with. I named it MSDR. I already did this to save some time. And back to the question about the environments. So you also have to create some forks environment. So to create a fork environment, go to the left side, click on environments, then create a fork, and name it whatever you want, and pick your workspace that you had your collection fork to too. So I already did this, so I'll be skipping the step too. You could also use the templates. And what's different about templates versus demo environment is the template is for your cloud environment. And you just basically, all you have to do is replace the URL and your login credentials. So basically your login mode, your password, and your username if they're different. Let me navigate to my workspace now. Oh, okay, so that should answer his question. Let me show you the whole workflow of creating a metric in we're using our collection. So you navigate to authentication. You authenticate a user. Make sure to select your environment first. So you can't actually do this in demo environment because to create a metric, you need editing and metric permissions. So you had to set that. I set that in my cloud environment in order to do this. So let me hit run request. And let me see, change sets. So I'll go to change sets. I need to create change set. So this auth token call is automatically populated from our call here. So I set this automatically with our in our test script. So that's why we have the variable here, and we don't need to copy it again. And this is from our environment variable actually. So that's why we don't need to copy it again. And you could change, if you don't want that environment variable for project ID, you could change it in your environment. In your environment here, go to environments. So once I create the change set, I actually store down the change set ID too. So when I go to metrics, you can just hit, and there's some default metric values we create for you. So you don't have to make one by yourself. You don't know like the format yet. So there's some default payload we have here. And now this is the metric we created. And now you can actually also see, okay, what are the like read metrics, see the definition. You can also see it with this call. And this is by the metric ID. You might see that it says unresolved variable right now. The reason for this is that by default, if you don't have a metric ID in your environment, we use the runtime value of your metric ID. So when we create a metric, we actually create it using the RD underscore metric ID. RD basically is our naming convention for runtime data. So this value actually populates right here by default. And how this is done is through our pre-request script. So basically we're saying, hey, if the user doesn't have a default value for any GET requests or instance requests, we'll try to check in our runtime data, see if there's a runtime data for them to use instead. So they don't have to change it every time. But if they have, so this is the script that handles that. So even if they don't have a default value for it, we'll populate it by default.
The purpose for this is we want to make it a little bit safer, right? When you create we put a bunch of public IDs in that environment variable. We don't want you to make a mistake, right? Mistakenly change that, right? For all the post and update calls, we actually use the temporary variable. So we want to try to use the object you just created, right? So we try to use the RD underscore prefix. And if for all the get calls, we try to resolve. So for the get calls, if you have a temporary variable, if you have an object you just created, we will use that. If you don't have an object you just created, we will use the default. So make it the balance between the safeness and the convenience.
So after creating the metric and change set, you have to commit the change set in order to actually apply this metadata. So now actually, when I search for this under browsing, go to search. So this is actually named the metric cost comparison metric. Type is 4. So if you don't know the type of what the object you're searching for, you can actually see the description and go to the link we have here. It goes through all the enums. I have extra copied it wrong. And you can see all the values of what it is. So what we have is actually metric. So you can see 4 is the value of metric. And there's a whole bunch of fields you could set with other and it'll tell you in the description what are the possible values and some description of what it can be. So you can see, okay, now it exists in the metadata because we committed it. Now, let's say I want to clean this up too. You can go to objects. I'm going to clean this up. Objects, it's type 4. I can change this to runtime metric ID. And you can see the metric ID is here. I could delete it. And let's see, let me go back to the slides. So I showed you the Swagger versus Postman, how to use the REST API collection and scripting. Yeah. So you can see this is our top level. This is our collection, and this is a collection script. And here's our collection test. We don't actually have any tests here, but we do have our script. And basically, this did what Harry described. Basically, if you don't have a default value, we use the runtime value of it just to say stay safe. Each one of these are folders under this collection. Each one of these folders also, we don't use any, I don't think we use any pre-script scripts here, but you could put a script here if you want a script to apply before every request in this folder. There's also a location here. Here's another location for the pre-script scripts, and there's tests you can put in each one of these folders and levels, essentially. Our test is where we set what we do with the response, essentially. Let's see, variables. So all these variables, we set it in the environment, but they are scope based. So if you have a local variable, that's it will take priority over your environment variable, essentially. So you can read more about the scoping of variables on the Postman documentation. Okay, next is, let me show you, I have another demo, which is on the workflows collections. So there's two collections in our workspace, and the other one is the workflow collection. So what is the workflow collection? The workflow collection is, okay, maybe in the previous step, you didn't know what is the order you have to use to create all these metrics. How do you create metrics fully? Well, in our workflows collection, we actually go over what are the possible, what's the example workflow? So it shows you, okay, you need to log in first, create change set, then create metric. And if you want to put any updates to metric, you can put an update to metric, then you commit it. You can also see the definition afterwards. And we delete it here just to not basically have unused and spam the user's environment and fill it with unnecessary metrics. So we delete afterwards, but users can obviously, if they don't want to execute it, they could also delete it. So let me see, you can actually run this by, and I'm doing this in the cloud environment because I have the necessary permissions. So you need to make sure all the permissions are right. You see, everything's passed. You can see in a console, actually, what are all the request body, etc. responses, request body. Okay. You can also, there's also documentation. So this is, we tried our best to base the workflows based on what's available in the REST API documentation already. But we also have some workflows outside the documentation that we plan to eventually have in the documentation. So you can see if you go through our documentation and you want to explore some REST API calls described in it, instead of downloading the code samples from our documentation, you can use our REST API collection here instead. Let's see. So another way, instead of using console, is you could run each one of these requests individually too, and you could see the cookies, the headers, the test results here. And yes, you can run each one of these. And if you want to make any changes, you can too. So let's say I want to name this something different. I can name this some other name. Well, you can edit it too. And you could run the remainder workflows. Let's say you don't want to update it, you could skip it. You could run these individually. Yes. Right. Any questions? And our logout call is important for basically after each one of these workflows, we have a logout call that basically cleans up any of the runtime data. So like the metric ID, the change set ID that's used here. I'll also be showing you quickly another workflow example. So attribute element, because we get a lot of questions on this. So how do you answer? So this workflow basically describes how do you answer a attribute element prompt within a report. So you would have to log in first, then create an instance of the report, then get a list of all the prompts. And from the prompt there's only one prompt in this example. That's why in our test request, we set the prompt ID as the first prompt, but you could obviously change this to whichever prompt you're trying to reference. And we get all the elements in this prompt. So here are all the elements available in this prompt, which are basically the answers, how you can answer the prompt. And if you don't want to, by default in our answer prompt call, we answer with all the prompt elements. But if you don't want to do that, you can set it to whatever answers you want based on the response here. And you can answer the prompt with your selected elements. And then you can get the report definition after you answer prompt 2 and log out. Another thing I'll be showing you quickly is how to use monitors in REST API. So I just made a new collection here real quick, and I'm gonna put this up here. Let's see.
You can do start.
Let me drag manage subtotals.
You can add a favorite to the new collection. You can mark as this one. Click the start. It will show up at top.
Let's see. Browse folders. I want search for certain folders.
Well, the recommendation is you make a copy, then you drag the copy to the.
You can make a copy or drag it too.
So if you make a copy of folder, it will copy everything in the folder.
Yeah. So if you duplicate it, you can also make a duplicate. Browsing. It'll be a copy. So let me show you the collection. You can actually create monitor. So there's a create. If you hit the triple dots here, you can monitor a collection. So what does it mean to monitor a collection? Basically, what a monitor does is you can it kind of does what the name describes. Monitor for folder. It'll execute basically whatever's in your collection based on the timer you set. So you could run this monitor every day, and what it'll do is execute everything in your collection every day at the time you set and whatnot. And you can receive notifications if it fails. So let me create this monitor real quick. I don't want to browse folder actually, so I'm going to delete this. Or I don't want
move back.
Browse folder is fine actually. So once I create this monitor, you can see it hasn't run yet. So I run it now, but if I didn't hit that run, it would run at 11 a.m. every day. And you can see certain things are failed, and it failed because I actually didn't, when I create that monitor, I didn't actually set my environment. Let's see. I need to set the environment. So I'll set this to this environment and 1 a.m. So it doesn't disturb anyone, and it should work this time. See, it failed 100%, and it takes some time to run depending on how long your collection is. So certain ones passed, and you could see the data of let's see, everything passed, 0 errors. You can see, okay, so this would run based on time you set. So if you have some collection you need to run every day, or you want to check like some objects exist every day, you can put it in the collection and put a monitor on it in order to ensure it's working every day at a certain time or something like that. Yes, and there was a question on, is the logout function test? It's not a real logout. It's a real logout. It basically clears your off token and etc. And let me go back to slides. And that's it for me. I'll hand it back to Harry.
All right, thank you, Edward. So I'm going to talk about some of the advanced features from Postman. So this one shows you can actually use the command line tool to run the collections. So let me run this. So in my folder, I have the collections. You can download collections from Postman, right? You can download collection, you can download environment, and you can run after you install the Newman, there's a command line tool, Newman. You can specify which collection you want to run and which environment that you want to use and which folder of the collection you want to run. So after you run this, you'll see some result. So you can use this as the automation tool, right? You create the collections, you can run the command line and run the collections instead of writing the, you can run the collection instead of writing the programming language code. So you can use the command line tool. So that's one feature provided by Postman. Where's my? Okay, so next, so the benefit of using the fork is you can get a notification when we update our source. So if you, so we will not, right? So Postman will not automatically update your code or your collection if the source is changed. So you will get a notification, and you will get a notification. You can get an email, and if you want to manually update it, right, you click this the triple dot, and you click the merge changes. You'll see something on top. You can click the merge change. This will make a change. Will merge the change from a source to your collection. Postman also provide a lot of open source libraries. All of them, like those libraries, are Node.js modules. So you can create a Node.js project and use this library to do your advanced projects, right? If you want to pass the collection, you will want to create a collection automatically, you can use this collection SDK. If you want to run the collections, you can use the runtime library. So with the runtime library, you can also inject the code between the collection, between each run, and also handle some error conditions. You can also use the code generator library to generate the code automatically for your project. So those are the advanced SDKs. To find those information, you can go to Postman's learning website, and also go to their GitHub project. And so we want your contribution to the project. So our Postman workspace and collection are hosted publicly on the Postman's platform, so everybody can make a contribution. So there are a couple of things you can do. If you find an issue, right, with our collection, you want to log a defect or log issues as the external user, you can go to the GitHub. You go to GitHub and go to the issues. You can submit the issues there. We can take a look. Internal user, you can use the Slack channel, just the post message on the Slack channel as well. So if you want to ask questions, you can go to the GitHub page and go to discussing and post your questions there. We will follow up. And internal user, you can post a question on the Slack channel. If you want to make modification to the public collections, if you want to, let's say if you want to fix some typo or fix some mistakes, or if you want to create a new collections, you want to share this with everybody, right? You can create a PR, you can create a pull request, and we will receive the pull request. We can review and merge that into the public collection. So those are the ways you can contribute. There's so many features you can use in the playground hosted on the Postman. So from no code to low code to more code, right? So without writing any code, you can use this as the documentation. Use that as the documentation, use that as the interactive tutorial. You can also try the request very easily. And you can write some code in the pre-request and the test section, test to script section. You can write JavaScript code and make it, you can use that as your test automation, right? You can schedule monitoring. You can use the SDK to run that on schedule basis or manually. And you can also generate code. So for the Postman has provide a UI for you to generate code. You can go to that place and find a language you want and generate a code and copy that code to your project. And with SDK, you can do some advanced stuff. So let me quickly show you how you can find information. I think after this session, you know where to find. You can just search, right? The playground is hosted on postman.com/MicroStrategy SDK. So and you can find our documentation on GitHub, github.com/MicroStrategy/rest.api-playground. Also, we will keep posting videos on YouTube channel, so you can find a YouTube channel playlist for the REST API. And also, if you are interested in the embedding SDK playground, you can also find our project and on the GitHub. That's it. Let's take some questions.